Okay, good afternoon, students. Thank you for considering the request to prepone the class before lunch. Let's start. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, welcome to this 5. In the previous class, we have seen how to write Java classes for mapper and reducer, and how to use them in order to analyze the NCDC weather data set. Now today we are going to see how to scale out our MapReduce task to distributed file system. So far we worked on only pseudo distributed mode that is using one machine. Now let us see how we can work on multiple machines with large volumes of input. Before that, let's just quickly recap how to write Java MapReduce jobs once again, because this is very important topic. Now we have, having run through how the MapReduce program works in the previous class, the next step is to actually express in code. For that, we have seen how to write the mapper class, reducer class, and within that, how to define map and reduce functions, and come and write some code in order to run the jobs. Okay, so these are the input splits that we have considered, taking the file offset and the entire text data here in the form of various input splits, which contains the year data and the temperature captured in that particular year, along with its quality code. For that, we have written a mapper class which uses the wrapping classes long writable, which is actually analogous to Java's long, and text for Java's string, and int writable for Java's int, right? For this, we have extended the mapper class, which is the class that is available in ORG Apache Hadoop MapReduce, and we have customized our mapper class by extending it from this superclass. And this has a declared function map, which we again redefine according to our requirements. Okay, and in this we have seen how to take the input string and extract the substring from that, namely the air temperature and the quality code. If both the air temperature and the quality code are valid, means air temperature is not missing and the quality code is any of these numerical values. In that case, we can just fact that key value pair, that is the year and the air temperature recorded in that year, pack it into a context object and pass it on to the reducer class. We understood about this context here. This context object as a communicator between various objects which carries the information from one context to another context. Here from mapper context to reducer context. For that, we have written the reducer class again, which utilizes the output given by mapper class. And this takes again in the form of key value pairs, that is the year and the air temperature, the list of air temperatures in that particular year, and which gives the output as again a key value pair, which is the year and the maximum temperature in that list of temperatures in that particular year. For that, again, we redefine the reduce function in the reducer class, and we wrote the code in order to find out the maximum temperature. And we packed that year and the maximum temperature recorded in that year again with the context object in order to pass it on to the job. Now, finally, we have written a MapReduce job by giving an appropriate name, max temperature. And this, when we are running this max temperature class, we are passing two command line arguments. One is the input path, that is from where the file has to be taken, or say set of files in a directory can be taken as input, and to which file the output has to be written. Remember, the reduce classes output have to be written onto the HDFS cluster, and even replicas have to be maintained. Otherwise, the data may be lost. Though mapper is like an intermediate class where the data is not written anywhere, just carried by the context object, you have to write the output of reducer class to some file on HDFS cluster. That is why we need to mention the output path. Input path is from where you are taking the input in order to process, and the output path is the file to which you are writing the reduce classes output or reduce functions output. Now, in order to pack this into a job, in order to hand over this job to Hadoop and may facilitate it to distribute it into various tasks across the data nodes, you need to pack it into a job first. That is why you are creating the new instance of job class, and you're setting the jar file also. Means you're packing this max temperature dot class file and packing it into a jar file so that the Java archive file can be distributed by the Hadoop across all the nodes in the cluster. And you can also give a default, you can also give a job name to this job that you are packing, that is max temperature. It has to just indicate the purpose for which you are assigning that job. Your main task, your objective is to find the maximum temperature. That is why you are giving the name as max temperature. Now you are also adding the input path and the output path. The input path will take the data from the input file and adds it sets it to file input format, and also it is setting the path to the output file. That is where the file has to be written. The output of the reduce class has to be written. And then you are setting the mapper class by using the mapper.class file, and you are setting the reducer class by using the reducer.class file to the job object. Now finally, you are setting the output key class and the output value class. Say if you are working with different types of data types, in that case you need to explicitly set what would be the type of key and value that is given by the reduce class. That is the actual output of the job task. Okay, in this case, we are taking the year as the text value. That is like a string value. The key is a text value, and the output, the value for that particular key. That is the max A temperature. Maximum A temperature recorded in that particular year. So we are setting the year's value as text and the A temperature value as int writable. Okay, and finally you are calling the wait for completion method through the job object, which actually writes its status to the console in the form of verbose. In this case, it writes its status by indicating it as true if the job is complete, and that will be taken as 0. If the job is completed, that will be converted to the Boolean output 0 or 1. If the task is complete, then it gives 0, otherwise as 1. That is actually transformed into system exit output. This indicates the completion of the job, and finally the output will be written to the file indicated in this output path, right? This is how we need to write mapper class, reducer class, and pack them into a job object and hand it over to Hadoop in order to complete the job and get the output written to the output file. I hope you understood this topic very well, right? Now let's move on to the next topic, scaling out. So far, we have seen how to work with small amounts of data. We haven't worked with large amounts of or large volumes of data. And also, we worked only on a single machine in a pseudo-distributed mode. We haven't worked with multiple machines on a Hadoop cluster or HDFS cluster. Now we are going to see how to work with large volumes of data on multiple nodes on a HDFS cluster by using the scaling out concept. Now to allow Hadoop to move the MapReduce computation to each machine hosting a part of the data, the process is to be followed in this particular manner, right? What I'm going to explain right now. So I understand one good thing here is we are moving the MapReduce computation to each machine hosting part of the data. Remember, you're not moving the data across all the machines. You're moving only the MapReduce computation. Means you're trying to save the network bandwidth by not passing data to and fro between various nodes, right? You're only passing the MapReduce computation from one machine to another machine. So in order to allow to move the MapReduce computation to each machine hosting a part of the data, the process is as follows. Again, you have to note that the data is divided into blocks and distributed across various data nodes with replication factor 3. So the data is not situated on a single data node, but it is situated on multiple data nodes. So you have to pass this map reduce computation to all those blocks of that particular file, which make up that particular file. Now, a map reduce job is a unit of work that the client wants to be performed, and it consists of the input data, that is the data which has to be analyzed, and the map reduce program and the configuration information, right? That is the client configuration and the name node configurations, where exactly the blocks of data are distributed. Now, Hadoop runs the job by dividing it into various tasks, of which there are two types. Now, Hadoop runs this particular job by dividing the task into two different categories. One is the map task and the other one is the reduce task. Now, there are two types of nodes that control the job execution process. One is the job tracker and the other one is the task tracker. That is why when I spoke about Hadoop daemons, I told you that there are 5 daemons that has to be run when a job has to be completed. That is the name node, secondary name node, and the data nodes, job tracker, and task tracker. These are the 5 daemons that have to be run by Hadoop in order to complete a job, in order to complete the execution of a job. So there are two types of nodes that control the job execution in this case. That is a job tracker and a number of task trackers. Now the job tracker's job is to actually coordinate all the jobs run on the system by scheduling tasks to run on task tracker. Again, this job tracker acts as a mediator who actually schedules the task to run on different task trackers. Now the task trackers run tasks and send progress reports to the job tracker, which keeps a record of the overall progress of each job. 1 second. Okay. Now, this task trackers run the tasks and send progress reports and also about their connection with the job tracker by sending frequent heartbeats that they are in association with the job tracker. They are in coordination with the job tracker. So these task trackers run tasks and send progress reports to the job tracker, which keeps a record of the overall progress of each job. Because the job is divided into various tasks, they have to keep track of each task. Even if one task fails, immediately the job tracker has to assign it to a different task tracker, right? That is why it has to keep track of all the progress of the job. Now, if a task fails, the job tracker can reschedule it on a different task tracker on a different data node. Now, Hadoop divides the input to a MapReduce job into fixed size pieces called input splits. Why it has to divide it into fixed size chunks? Because one of the tasks should not be delayed for a long time, whereas the other job can be completed very fast. That is why Hadoop divides the input to a MapReduce job into a fixed size pieces called input splits, or sometimes they can just be called as splits. Now, Hadoop creates one map task for each split, which runs the user-defined map function for each record in the split, right? So this each split is assigned as a map task. Now, having many splits means the time taken to process each split is small compared to time to process the whole input, right? Rather than processing the entire input as a whole, if you can divide them into equal size chunks or work units, then it takes considerably less amount of time. So having many input splits actually means that the time taken to process each split is small compared to the time to process the entire input data. So if we are processing the splits in parallel, now consider if these splits are being processed in parallel, then the processing is better load balanced when the splits are small, since a faster machine will be able to process proportionally more splits over the course of the job than a slower machine, right? If the machine's capacity is more, if the processing capability is more, if it is faster, then it will be able to process proportionally more splits over the course of the job when compared to a smaller machine. Now, even if the machines are identical, if their capacity is same, failed process or other jobs running concurrently make load balancing desirable. Load balancing is always required, and the quality of the load balancing increases as the splits become more fine-grained. So when you're trying to make the splits smaller and smaller, the quality of the load balancing actually increases. Why? Because more number of splits can be carried on by a faster machine. Now, on the other hand, if splits are very small, what happens? Okay, splits are actually equal sized chunks from the main input data. Now, if the splits are made too small, very small, in that case, the overhead of managing the splits and of map task creation begins to dominate the total job execution time. So the job tracker now spends more time on creating the tasks, taking these smaller input splits, and this actually dominates the work of the job tracker rather than the job tracker assigning efficiently the task to various task trackers. So the input splits should not be too small that it creates an overhead to the job tracker. So for most jobs, a good split size tends to be the size of an HDFS block. What is the default size of HDFS block? It is 64 MB by default, right? So for most of the jobs, a good split size, ideal split size tends to be the size of the HDFS block itself, that is 64 MB. And although this can be changed for the cluster or specified when each file is created, you can specify it explicitly, but it is always good to take the minimum size as 64 MB in order to assign the map task to the splits. Now, Hadoop does its best to run the map task on a node where the input data resides in HDFS. So this is called as the data locality optimization because it doesn't use valuable cluster bandwidth. Cluster bandwidth is not utilized to move the data to and fro between the name nodes. Rather than that, this Hadoop is trying to move the map and reduce functions where the data is actually residing, where the blocks of data is actually residing, so that it can save on the cluster bandwidth. Now, sometimes, however, all three nodes hosting the HDFS block replicas for a map task input split are running other map tasks. When they are engaged in running other map tasks, in that, so the job scheduler now starts looking for a free map slot on a different node in the same rack as one of the blocks. Now it tries to locate another map slot on a different node where the block of data is available in the same rack as one of the blocks. But still, if it is not free, then it goes to inter-rack node. Now, very occasionally, even if this is not possible, that is, if the same node in the same rack also is engaged with some map task, in that case, an off-rack node is used, means a node on a different rack is used, which results in an inter-rack network transfer. In this case, little bandwidth have to be utilized in order to transfer the map function to a different node on a different rack. If on the current rack, all the nodes are busy with the map tasks. Now that is indicated with this diagram. Say this is the map task and this is the HDFS block. Now when this map task, when this HDFS block sees that a node is busy with the map task, then it searches for a different node which is free, which can take up the map task. Still, that is also engaged, then it goes for a different racks node where the map slot is free and assigns that particular map job to that data node where it can run the job, right? Because you are trying to transfer the data from one rack to another rack, little bandwidth is utilized for this inter-rack communication of the MapReduce tasks. Now it should now be clear why the optimal split size is same as the block size. We have to maintain the optimal split size, the minimum split size, to be same as the block size, that is the minimum atomic unit of data transfer between nodes in a HDFS cluster. Why? Because it is the largest size of input that can be guaranteed to be stored on a single node, right? So because this is equal, it need not run between the data nodes in order to search for the same block of data on two different data nodes. It can locate a block of data on one single data node. That is why it has to be, the split size has to be same as the block size. Now, if the split spanned two blocks, what will happen? It would be unlikely that any HDFS node stored both blocks. So some of the split would have to be transferred across the network to the node running the map task, which is clearly less efficient than running the whole map task using the local data, right? So rather than running a map task on a single node which contains the entire block, if it is divided, that block is divided onto two different data nodes, then the HDFS node, the HDFS has to run between two different data nodes in order to run the map task. This will be less efficient because bandwidth will be utilized unnecessarily. So you need to see that the block of data should be available on a single data node. I'm not talking about the replica or the default replication factor. I'm talking about one copy of block of data which has to be available on a particular data node. It should not be split further. Now, map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to HDFS, because map output is intermediate output. Remember, the output of map task is not written to a standard file on any HDFS cluster. It is just written to the local disk so that it can be transferred to the reduced task, and only the reduced task final output can be written to a standard file in the HDFS cluster. Now, map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to HDFS, because map output is intermediate output. It is processed by reduced tasks in order to produce the final output. And once the job is complete, the map output can be thrown away. It need not be stored permanently anywhere. So storing it in HDFS with replication would be an overkill. It is actually overburdening HDFS in order to store the map output, because it will not be further used once the job is complete. Okay. Now, if the node running the map task fails before the map output has been consumed by the reduced task, in that case, what will happen? Then Hadoop will automatically rerun the map task on another node to recreate the map output and get the output safely written to the local disk and further pass it on to the reduced task. Now, the reduced tasks don't have the advantage of data locality, because the map task will actually process the data and give the output in key value pairs, which will further be utilized by the reduced task in order to aggregate and consolidate the result. That is why reduced task doesn't have the advantage of data locality. Now, the input to a single reduced task is normally the output from all the mappers. Means all the mappers' output will be utilized and taken into a single reduced task. In some case, reduced task can be multiple. In some cases, it can be single. And some cases, even you can omit the entire reduced task also. I'll discuss about all those scenarios in the coming slides. Now, the input to a single reduced task is normally the output from all mappers. This we understood. Now, in the present example, we have a single reduced task that is fed by all the map tasks. Remember, though there is a single reduced task, it receives input fed by output of all the map tasks. Therefore, the sorted map outputs have to be transferred across the network to the node where the reduced task is running, where they are actually merged together and then passed to the user-defined reduce functions. This requires utilization of bandwidth. We can't overcome this particular utilization of the bandwidth, because all the data from the map jobs have to be passed on to the reduce class. So the output of the reduce is normally stored in HDFS for reliability, and even the replicas are also maintained. We'll see that. Now for each HDFS block of the reduced task, the first replica is stored on the local node with other replicas being stored on off-rack nodes. Means on a different rack but within the same cluster. Thus, writing the reduce output does consume network bandwidth. That is what I spoke little before. Writing the reduce output consumes network bandwidth because all the map tasks will give their output to the reduced task, pass their outputs to the reduced task, but only this utilization is as much as a normal HDFS write pipeline consumes. So whenever HDFS is attempting to write something to the data nodes, how much bandwidth is consumed, same level of bandwidth is consumed even to write the output of the reduced task to a HDFS cluster, file on a HDFS cluster. Now see here, this is the map reduced data flow with a single reduced task. In this case, all these input splits are passed on to the map function, and these will provide the sorted data in the key value pairs which are copied on to the for them to be merged and given as input to the reduce phase. For this passing of data, it uses some bandwidth. For passing the outputs of map task to the reduced task, it utilizes some bandwidth, but it is not too much than HDFS write process. Now all this data is merged together and given as input to the reduce phase, which will give you the final output, which actually has to be written with HDFS replication, following the default replication factor 3. Means the output of reduce phase have to be maintained in 3 replicas. Its replication factor should be 3. 3 copies have to be maintained. Now the number of reduced tasks is not governed by the size of the input, remember, but instead it is specified independently. The client can specify what should be the number of reduced tasks based on the type of key value outputs that would be given by the map task. Now, when there are multiple reducers, the map task partition their output, each creating one partition for reduced task. Right? If there are multiple reducers, all these reducers have to be fed by the map task. That is why the map task partition their output, each creating one partition to feed each of the reduced tasks that are being considered. Now there can be many keys and their associated values in each partition, but the records for any given key are all in a single partition. So the records that are utilized for any key should be in a single partition that is being passed on to the reduced task. Now the partitioning can be controlled by a user-defined partitioning function, but normally the default partitioner which buckets keys using a hash function works very well. So the default partitioner will be by using a hash key function, which actually partitions the output of the map task very well. Now here we can see the data flow for multiple reduced tasks. Now in the previous case we had only one reduced task, but if you have multiple reduced tasks being considered for this map reduced job, in that case the map jobs outputs are sorted, and while sorting it creates different partitions that are copied onto various intermediate level components, and they are actually merged together. The key values are merged together for that particular component and passed as input to the reduce phase. And each of these reduced components, each of these reduced tasks will give you individual outputs. And remember, all these outputs should be treated separately by maintaining their HDFS replication factor, default replication factor. Here we are getting multiple reduced outputs in this case, whereas in our previous case, we are getting a single output, right? There may be some data where you tend to obtain multiple reduced outputs. In that case, we can use multiple reduced tasks. Now this diagram makes it clear why the data flow between the map and reduced tasks is colloquially known as the shuffle, right? That is why it is shuffling. See, this key value pair is being shuffled. It is given, half is given, the key value pair is given here as well as here also, so that it can be fed to two reduced tasks. The shuffling of the key value pairs happen. That is why that stage is called as the shuffling stage. Now the shuffle is more complicated than this diagram actually depicts, and tuning it can have a big impact on job execution time, right? So if you try to fine tune this shuffling task, then the job execution time will be much lesser. So you should try to fine tune this shuffling phase in order to reduce the transfer of data between the map and reduce tasks, so that it improves the execution time. I mean, it reduces the execution time and improves the efficiency of the job. Now, finally, it is also possible to have zero reduced tasks also. You can completely omit the reduced tasks. This can be appropriate when you don't need the shuffle, because the processing can be carried out entirely in parallel. And now sometimes you don't need to shuffle the key value pairs given by the map task. You just want to run them parallelly without the help of any reduced task. In this case, the only off-node data transfer is when the map task write to HDFS directly. In this case, reduce doesn't write the data to HDFS files. Only the map task will try to write the entire data to the HDFS files without intervening of, without the interruption, without the intermediate reduce task. Now we can see the map reduce data flow with no reduced task in this case. In this case, the output of map is directly fed as input to the file on a HDFS cluster by maintaining the replication factor. Here, all the map jobs outputs are directly written as various inputs to the file, and with their default replication factor onto the files on HDFS cluster. Here there is no intermediate reduced job that is coming into picture. We are not using any reduced task. Means if we are not using any reduced task, it means that we don't want the result to be consolidated. We want to write the map reduce out, map output as it is to the file on HDFS cluster. That is why we are omitting reduced task, because we don't want any consolidation of the output given by the map task. In that case, we are writing directly all the output to the files on HDFS by maintaining the default replication factor. Okay, in next class, we'll see how to use combiner functions so that we can minimize the amount of data that is being transferred between map and reduce phases in order to save the bandwidth, in order to optimize the utilization of cluster bandwidth. Okay, any doubts still here?
No, ma'am.
Is it very clear? Paresh, your expression is same as in your profile pic? Or did you really understand the concept?
No, I understood.
What, Paresh?
I understood, ma'am. But
Very
ma'am,
good.
expression isn't good, huh?
No, it's like you're wondering about what really is this topic. Okay, fine. We'll end the meeting then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, catch you up in the next class. Bye.